What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day, and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. Story 7. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day, our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated, and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and spent the next 15 years being a mother, paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated, and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. Story 8. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, and methamphetamine. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. Story 9. My cousin raped me when I was a kid, and to this day I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. Story 9. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom and dad were fighting just about every day. Well, I was napping on the couch when my mom came in very upset, and she shook me awake. She asked me if I saw the girl my dad brought home. I've always felt terrible for this BC. I hadn't seen anyone but my dad that whole day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual. But for some reason in my sleepy kid brain I answered yes. I said she was with him in their room. I'm honestly not sure why I lied like that, but they got a divorce shortly after, and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out my little sister is actually my half-sister, but that's a whole other story, edit. For clarification, my dad had been cheating with my mom's sister, and my mom was cheating with one of their friends to get back at him. She thought he was cheating with a different girl, but found out later it was my aunt. Honestly, their relationship was on its way out. I don't feel bad about it now, since a few years ago, we found out my little sister is my half-sister from the affair my mom had. Story 10. Ever since my daughter took her own life, I have been hiding how much pain I'm really in. My family is beyond dysfunctional, so it would create more crap for me to deal with. Although I did tell my mom to gargle donkey balls yesterday, and that made me feel slightly better. Story 11. My ex-wife, the mother of my 3 kids, and the first love I ever had, committed suicide 2.5 years ago. I've been trying to be strong for my kids and help them through it. I'm still completely fucked up over it, and haven't had the chance to really mourn yet. It's awful, but my kids need me strong and here for them. Story 12. When my grandpa was on his deathbed, he admitted to killing fellow Marines in the Vietnam War for torturing and raping young girls. Most of our family doesn't know. He was a gunsmith his whole life and was very proud of being a Marine. But the guilt he carried from the war made him believe he was being punished in the end. He died a really painful and traumatic death that I would never wish on anybody. I hope it lets him rest easier in peace, that the majority of you commend what he did, I certainly never held any qualms about it. Story 13. My best friend from childhood came over to my college dorm to hang out one night. He bought coke and pills from other guys living on my hall for a party he was going to, and honestly I was impressed with him for being so well versed in the buying of drugs and charismatic with my dorm mates. Before he left, he told me not to tell his mother what he was doing, but to tell her he loved her if he died, and I thought something was wrong. But I let him go because we had plans for the next day, and I figured he had just developed a dark sense of humor in the time since we'd last seen each other. In retrospect, he'd shown all of the signals, but I refused to see them, so I let him drive away. He didn't make it. He crashed his car many hours later that night with no seatbelt, probably high. His mother asked me what happened. I didn't tell her anything because I wanted her to think it was an innocent accident. I didn't want her to know what he got into. I'm still keeping his secret. Story 14. My dad killed himself and called all his kids the night before. He made it look like an accident because he thought it was the only way to take care of my mother, set her up with his life insurance. Wrote a note saying mow the lawn, then just ran lawnmowers in the garage with the doors closed till he died of gas poisoning. Neighbor ran over and helped my mom when she got home from work, thankfully, as he was the local sheriff. So when all the police arrived, he took care of the talking and said the door was up. So it was duped an accident, and my mom got the money my dad intended her to get. After coming to peace with it, I'd just like to urge anyone with that mindset. Don't kill yourself, money comes and goes. Story 15. When I was 16, I went over to a buddy's place and thought it would be funny to sneak inside and scare him. I knew their back porch door was usually unlocked, so I let myself in and quietly went upstairs. His sister's room was on the way to his, and as I passed it, I saw them together. They were making out and he was fingering her. So I jat faux of there and decided I'd never mention it. They're both still friends of mine and weirdly close despite having their own partners in life. It still makes me uncomfortable. Story 16. My mother is an angel of death. By that, I mean that in 2 separate cases she poisoned our family dogs to death, and when her father was in late stage of his cancer, she overdosed him with an enormous dose of morphine to end his life. My grandfather is the only one she has admitted to. As terrifying as that is, it gets worse. She spent several years working in a retirement home as a nurse. She eventually was exited from that job. Not fired, didn't quit, but was quietly exited from the residence. It goes without saying, we don't speak, and she is not allowed near anyone I care about. Story 17. I was deep in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser at 20. He was 28. He was killed in a freak accident. Initially, I cried at his funeral and struggled pretty hard. Once the brainwashing wore off and I came to my senses, I realized him dying was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. We both lived in a small town, and I know that if he were alive, I would have never been able to enjoy a normal life. I sleep peacefully knowing he isn't stalking me or preying on new victims. I am so thankful for his passing, but everyone thinks that it was the most horrific thing that could have happened to me. Nobody knows the extent of the abuse. Story 18. I was repeatedly sexually abused by an older neighbor kid when I was 4 to 6. I have never told a single soul. He found me on social media years ago, and I accepted his requests, but never said anything to him about what happened when we were kids. I feel oddly guilty about what happened, even though I know at that age I didn't understand what was going on, only that it felt wrong. I've been in several serious relationships, including a marriage that ended in divorce, and I've still never revealed that side of me. Part of me thinks I keep it bottled up inside and minimized because I'm too afraid to acknowledge what happened to me, and that it has probably seriously affected me now almost 30 years later. I do feel a bit of relief now though, even though this is a completely anonymous platform. Thanks for listening.